Now will we see the magic?
All right, where's Murray? Okay, who is it?
This is Jesus, kid.
Know then that it is the year 10,191.
Yes, we are bored. We're all bored now.
Hi, good night.
Good night.
Hello and welcome to Mary versus the Movies. I'm your host, the host who's a ghost. Oh, God. Okay, you know what? This is dumb. I'm not doing this anymore. The point is, hi, welcome to Mary versus the Movies with your host, Mary Jones.
And Dennis Ling!
I'm glad somebody's in the spirit, because I can't sustain this nonsense. The reason why we did all that dumb stuff is it's October, which means it's horror month, right?
Horror month.
Halloween and all that. Which I love Halloween. I like horror movies. Yeah. I'm not really into gory stuff. Like, that's just not, it's not my thing. You know, just it doesn't really do anything. Like, I'm not going to watch the Saw movies. It just doesn't do anything for me. But I like horror, right?
Yeah.
So this is a movie called Lair of the White Worm. This is a horror movie that I've never gotten around to seeing, which is really weird because it's got, I assume, whatever I know about this film, I think it's got everything I want.
Like what?
Well, it's directed by Ken Russell.
All right. So
that's going to be wild. Have weird sex. Like, over the top. Like, completely maximalist filmmaking. Okay? Okay, that's number one. Number two, I believe it is based on a Bram Stoker novella. It falls into the folk horror genre, I believe. Last year when I had COVID, I sat and spent one day watching a 3.5-hour documentary on the folk horror genre in film. Which, by the way, was really good. It's called something like Wicked Woods, Dark and Deep or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but
was this it?
This was mentioned in it, if I remember correctly. Number three, two of the actors in this, Hugh Grant and Peter Capaldi. You know, Hugh Grant, his career's gone up and down, at least in America. But I happen to enjoy Hugh Grant usually on screen. Like, not everything, but, you know. I hate Love Actually, but I like Four Weddings and a Funeral. I don't want to see that Wonka movie, but I really like the Paddington movies. So
wait, is he in
he
the
is
Wonka?
In the set. Yeah, he's the Oompa Loompa.
Oh, that's right.
I know.
I forgot.
God, I just ugh.
Yeah.
They played that before we went to see Stop Making Sense, and they played that trailer before, and I'm like, who do you think the audience is here? Who is this for? And then I thought, yeah, I guess so, but not me.
You Gen Xers, you love Wonka.
No, but they'll have like grandchildren at this point.
Yeah.
So, God.
Wonka up your kids.
Grandkids.
Yeah, grandkids, whatever.
But otherwise, you know, like there are other things that I've seen Hugh Grant in that I really like. And Peter Capaldi, I mean, come on, he's Doctor Who and Malcolm Tucker. What else do I need to say?
Doctor Who.
So I'm excited for this.
Yeah.
And a worm, for those of you who don't know, is like a dragon. It's a type of dragon. It's an old word. It's an old Anglo-Saxon word. Or Old English, or whatever the proper terminology is these days.
Now, is that always spelled WYRM or?
Both are acceptable.
Okay, or WURM.
That's acceptable. You could throw the O in there. I believe in this it's with an O, but so it's not like an earthworm. But you know, the word worm, when we think of worms, we think of like earthworms and all those things.
Or dune worms.
Or dune worms.
Yeah.
Etymologically, yes, they are both related to worm with a Y or a U or whatever, which basically means a type of dragon.
Is it related to wyvern? Or
well, now you're asking for an etymology that I can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
No, I mean wyvern. They would not, like, they're not spelled the same or similar or anything. Like, the concept is similar in that, you know, a wyvern, if I remember correctly, is a dragon where the arms are the wings, and it's not like they don't have like 4 legs. And anyway, the point is,
fire drake.
I assume this has a dragon of some type in it, something dragon-like or worm-like, serpentine. You know, beyond that, I don't really know a lot. I don't know anything about the film. I just know that it somehow falls into the folk horror genre.
I know the cover.
You do?
Yeah.
That's more than I know.
And the leading lady reminds me a little bit of, what's her name in Beetlejuice? The mother.
Catherine O'Hara?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like her getup. It wouldn't surprise me if they were going for the look of this character.
Okay.
No, I haven't seen Lair the White Worm. I just know from TLA video. I remember seeing the cover because it was always in like the cult section. Yeah.
Going back to TLA video.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I miss TLA video. Bring it back. Netflix is getting rid of DVDs.
I went there so often, I can just close my eyes and picture the entire store.
Is this the one for South Street?
No. I always went to the one in Chestnut Hill.
Oh, the one that was by our apartment.
Yeah.
Yes. That was a great one.
I knew that one like the back of my hand. Like I was like, if we would mention the movie, I'm like, oh, it's over here.
So before I met you, I would always go to the one on Spring Garden because that was only a couple blocks from my place.
Spring Garden.
Yeah, there was one on Spring Garden Street.
Well, I don't think I ever went to that one.
Well, that one was also good. Thank you very much. It was near Golden Chopsticks.
Yeah.
Down at like, I don't know, 17th of Spring Garden, something like that. I don't remember. 19th. I don't know. Point is,
see, my friend Randy, he worked at the one on South Street.
Oh, nice.
And we were involved in a haunted slaughterhouse. I did the sound, or I was one of the people doing the sound for it, and all these sculptors were all working on it, and then we got shut down by Illinois.
Well, that's because you didn't pay them off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's literally what happened is you didn't pay them off.
Yeah.
I mean, it probably was dangerous, but like that has never actually stopped things before.
Yeah.
So anyway, Ken Russell. Have you ever seen a Ken Russell film?
No, I don't think so.
Oh.
You have.
I have.
Yeah.
I was very into the movie Tommy when I was 15, 16. That's a wild movie.
It's a movie I've never wanted to see.
Well, you're missing out. Like, look, I don't know that it's a good movie. I like it. I don't know if it's the best translation of The Who's famous rock opera. I think it's pretty awesome. Of course, I also haven't watched it in a long time. So my mom had like a Columbia House type thing, but for movies, and I forget what it was called. But it was the same idea. So, they would send you videotapes. And so she had that for a little while. And she was like, well, this month, do you want to pick something? And I saw Tommy was in there. And I'm like, I was obsessed with that record when I was like 15. I went over and I bought it over at Zern's for $1. And I just listened to that thing over and over again all summer. So when she said, yeah, pick out a movie. And I saw, there's a movie version of Tommy. I'm like, yeah, man, I want to see that. So got it. Took it to the basement, watched it in the basement because that's where I spent all my time. And I was like, yeah, man, this movie's amazing. This was like blowing my mind. And like, it's very over the top. It's a very, it is an exercise in excess. Okay. It's got Oliver Reed. It's got, Anne Margaret, if I remember correctly, plays the mother. I mean, it's really nuts. And, Roger Daltrey plays Tommy. I kind of do recommend it to people just for the experience. If you really like the record and you really want to see something bizarre, go watch that movie. However, do not watch it with your mother. That happened to me after a couple of viewings. My mom was just like, okay, I want to see this movie that you're really into. And I was just like, oh my God, no, I don't want her to see this. Like there is one scene that takes place in like the Church of Marilyn Monroe where they're giving out for communion pills. Now, the whole thing is obviously like a commentary on fame and worshiping rock stars and movie stars and stuff. And so, like, it's...
That doesn't sound like Tommy.
What? Criticizing worshiping celebrities?
Well, no, I mean...
The whole record is about that.
I know, but that doesn't sound
Dude,
like
you gotta see this movie. This movie rocks. But... my mom didn't like it and I knew she wasn't going to like it. So I pretended to like feel really sick and like fall asleep on the couch so that I didn't have to discuss the movie with her. And eventually she just turned it off. And I just pretended that like I had fallen asleep because I just, no. And we've never discussed it since. Thank God.
Yeah.
Yep.
She bought your story.
No, but I think that was enough. The same, actually, honest to God, the same thing happened when I wanted to watch the movie Ulysses, based on the Joyce novel. There's a film version made in the 60s, and I think my parents were just like, "Oh, you rented this movie from the library, huh? Let's watch it together." I'm like, I don't want to do that. No, come on, we'll sit down and watch it. Let's see what you're watching. I'm 18, by the way. Yeah. I'm old enough that they shouldn't even like be checking up on what I'm watching, but they were. And we got about 20 minutes in, and they shut it off
They're monitoring your viewing habits.
What is this garbage?
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't fun.
Mm.
So yeah, when I said I was going to watch Lair of the White Worm, my mom's just like, yeah, you go enjoy that in the other room.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. That's exactly the reaction I wanted.
Yeah.
That's all I want. So no, there will be no watching of this movie with my mother.
Do you think they'd want to see Society, maybe?
No, I don't think they would like to see Society. I think that might be a little much for them.
Yeah.
But you're along the right track for Ken Russell. I mean, that was a little more B-movie.
Yeah.
I would not consider Ken Russell a B-movie director.
Huh.
He's, man, I don't know. Like, okay, he did The Devils. Do you know The Devils? Listomania. So I'm excited to watch this movie because, we're kicking off Halloween month. It's horror. It's folk horror, my favorite kind of horror. I'm going into this expecting excess.
I don't really know anything about him.
Well,
Yeah.
now, you know what? You're in for a treat. You're going to see your first Ken Russell film.
All right, we'll see.
1, 2, 3, 4. John Lambton went a fishing once, a fishing in the weir. He caught a fish upon his hook, he thought looked mighty queer. Now what the kind of fish it was, John Lambton couldn't tell. But he didn't like the look of it, so he threw it down a well.
Well, that's about what I expected. Actually, I'd almost say it's tame for Ken Russell.
I could see that.
Yeah.
This is a sellout movie.
Well, I mean, it had, well, they weren't stars yet, but they became stars.
Except Amanda Donohoe.
They'll explain who she is in this.
Oh, so she is the worm.
Yeah. Well, no, she's not the worm.
Well, yeah, but she is
the acolyte.
Priestess. Yeah.
Yes.
But she has worm tendencies.
Well, yes. I mean, she is like some sort of snake lady.
Yeah.
Not the worm itself.
Right.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's a shame she didn't become big because she's great in this.
She's awesome.
I love her. She is evil and sexy, deadly and funny, and I just, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. We're supposed to be like, oh no, she's evil. But no.
Yeah, you kind of cheer for her early on.
Yeah. Because that Boy Scout she kills, he wasn't going to amount to much. No, I shouldn't say that.
Oh, no.
No, he
He's
probably
got the halitosis. He's got...
terrible BO, apparently.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, no big loss.
So yeah, Lair of the White Worm is kind of what I expected it to be. I don't know that I knew that it was set in the modern period, and it very much is set in, the 80s when it was made. So I had no idea that whether it was going to be a period piece or not, because like Russell did like period. I mean, medieval and 19th century and all that stuff. But this is totally 1988.
It feels a lot like American Werewolf in London, a horror film, and it has legitimate scares. It has gross out scenes, but it's really funny too. So, and it just works the balance really well.
Definitely falls under the horror comedy
Yeah.
genre. I know that when it came out, critics did not like this film at all. They thought it was his worst movie.
I'm kind of surprised.
I am and I'm not.
Is it because it's so tame compared to other stuff?
Well, I think some people were probably like, "This is way too toned down for a Ken Russell film," and I think I can understand that. And I think other people, I don't know. I mean, it's very campy, right? And not everybody likes that, but I happen to. And I think some people, the production quality on this is not. It's not terrible, but it doesn't feel big budget. It uses a lot of ADR. And I guess sometimes you have to, but I was like, wow, this is a lot of ADR.
What is ADR again?
ADR is when you have to go and re-record lines and you're doing it in a studio and then you put it on top of the film. And,
you know what? I didn't even notice.
Oh, so for some reason that always sticks out to me. Maybe because I spent a lot of my time like just editing sound and listening to things.
Well, one of my favorite films is Mad Max, the original Mad Max, and I much prefer the original dubbed version. It's like ridiculously badly dubbed.
Okay, when you say the original dubbed version,
Yeah.
you mean the version that you saw originally? Because originally it was not
The
dubbed.
original for me.
Yes.
The tape I have. My videotape.
Yeah. Well, so though, I mean, this isn't dubbed or anything like that. Everybody, it's not that sort of thing. But there is a lot of, I just don't know if like their sound equipment wasn't great. In fact, I'm not even sure. The whole film might be ADR, which is not unusual. I mean, like Star Wars is entirely dubbed over like that. That's not an unusual thing to do. But for some reason, it just stuck out to me here because there are times where the sound doesn't echo the right way for a room. And I'm just like, oh, wow. Yeah, that really, I don't know. For some reason, that stood out to me, but I think that's just me. So you actually looked up the Bram Stoker novel, right?
Yeah,
that said
it looks terrible.
Right. I'll tell you, I tried reading it like maybe a year or two ago, and I only got like 2 pages in, and I'm just like, well,
there's a lot of characters, and it kind of seems to go in all kinds of directions. It doesn't seem like something you should be following for a movie.
I mean, did you get what the plot of the book is at all?
It's sort of the same, although it's set, like 100 years before.
Well, it was set contemporaneous at that time, yeah.
And it's about like this guy Adam. So instead of Eve, we have Adam, who inherits some land, and then there's another inherited land. And there's a priestess like this one, but there's also someone who has a kite that's shaped like an owl that has godlike powers or something. And
well, thankfully that's not in this.
Yeah,
because now it's just getting a bit much.
Like I'm just reading like Wikipedia, and I'm still getting lost.
The film it starts off with there's a bed and breakfast. It's set up in the north in Derbyshire, so much like American Werewolf in London was set up in Yorkshire.
Yeah,
right. So this is like just south of that, but you're up in the north part of England, which is still very rural. These two sisters have a bed and breakfast. They'd had a farm. Their parents disappeared like a year ago. So they opened up a bed and breakfast to, I guess, keep the money coming in. And one of their tenants is a young archaeologist, Angus, played by Peter Capaldi, who looks like a baby here.
Yeah, in fact, I didn't know it was him at first. I was like, is that Hugh Grant? Like, I was like, who is this floppy-haired guy?
Which is funny because as soon as Hugh Grant comes on screen, it's just like, oh no, that's Hugh Grant. I mean,
terribly sorry, it's me, Hugh Grant. The thing is, by the end of the movie, he starts to look and act more like the Peter Capaldi that we know. He starts cursing, and it's like, oh, there's Peter Capaldi.
If I have a complaint about the film, it's we know what he can do and how funny he can be, and he doesn't get to do enough of that in here. Like towards the end, where he gets to be kind of the hero of the movie, he does. But it just feels like they don't know at the time that he's underutilized, but he's underutilized a little bit.
Yeah.
So he's like a young archaeologist, and he's doing a dig on their front lawn, and looking through. First he gets to a strata that is about 1,000 years before, where there had been a convent there.
Sounds like he just did this on his own too. Like,
well, I got the impression this was him like working on his PhD.
Yeah, but like he's staying there and he just starts digging.
Yeah.
Because it turns out they don't. The sisters don't actually own the land that he's digging on.
Oh well, that's because. Now, I don't think it's this way anymore, but it used to be that people often were just tenant farmers in the UK.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't own the land. A lord owned the land, and then you farmed for him. And that was the idea here. And so the lord of their land is Hugh Grant. He inherited, the title, and then so they're tenants, but... would you be allowed to do archaeology there without informing the Lord? Probably not. But also, I don't think that's the way like land use is done in the UK anymore. Like they do it in this movie because I guess it's convenient, but I don't think it works that way anymore. I mean, I guess you do still have tenant farmers, but like the people who own the land is usually like. I think like the town council or something. I don't know.
I wonder if that's in the original book.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Like this is very much using like 19th century social structures in the 20th century, and it's fine because it's a movie and who cares. And the only reason I'm debating any of this is because I listened to The Archers, which is a British soap opera set in like the rural landscape and like has a bunch of farmers and stuff. And so that's the other reason I'm just like, well, no, actually people like own their farms now. And so what do I know? I don't know this. I live outside Philadelphia. I don't know. What am I talking about? So he's doing this archaeological dig, and he finds a giant skull, a giant dragon skull.
Yeah.
Here's the problem with that, or maybe I missed the explanation. So at the end of this movie, we see the dragon. We see a dragon, the worm in question, right?
Yeah.
So here's this skull.
Yeah.
Well, that can't be the same worm then, right?
Yes, because the other half of the worm grew a head.
That's what I was wondering. Did they explain that, and did I just like miss that for some reason?
That's kind of what
they allude to it, but
what James theorizes.
Okay, I just missed a line in there because
Yeah.
that was bugging me for a while, and I'm just, man, I am so bad at watching movies.
Because James kind of figures out the plot pretty early on.
Right.
James is James Lambton, whatever.
James is Hugh Grant.
Yeah.
Yeah. 1,000 years before, Hugh Grant's ancestor, the first James Danton, slew the worm. Now, this is actually based on an old bit of genuine British folklore, and I believe there's a ballad. It's not one of the child ballads. I think it's like the Roud series, but the Lambton Worm. Instead of Danton, it's Lambton. They just changed it slightly. I don't know why. Because there is actually like a Lambton, and I think there actually is still a Lambton family, so maybe that's why they changed it. But the original story is sometime in the Middle Ages, there was this guy, James Lambton, who came across, a worm, and it wasn't that big. And he, I guess, threw it into a well. And because he chopped it and threw it into a well, and it came, years later, it came back up, and he had to slay the beast. And he slays it by chopping it up, but then dispersing the pieces, and it's not able to reunite. Because I think in the original ballad, it was able to, reunite itself or something. In order to not have a curse, as soon as he destroys the monster, he has to then kill something.
The first living thing he sees.
The first living thing he sees after destroying the monster, and he doesn't do that because it's his father, and that causes a curse. So.
And the curse is that every for 9 generations, that the Lambton will not die in their beds.
So, if I remember correctly, the first James, he goes off on the Crusades or something.
Yeah.
And so there was actually a family, and they did have a series of tragedies, and so I mean, obviously, this is some sort of back formation, of legend.
Yeah, it's like when the Kennedys killed that worm.
So he finds this skull, right? And it's at the same level as a convent, and so this is all tied together. So originally the convent was on the land of the Lord, and the Lord slew this monster, and I guess saved the nuns at this convent. And so now they're digging up the skull, and isn't this crazy? We just proved that the legend is true. So that night, they are going off to a ball held at the house of the current Lord of the land, which is Hugh Grant.
Yep.
And as soon as you see him on screen, it's funny. It's just kind of like,
oh, and there's Hugh Grant.
They're really, it's like there's not even a moment of, oh, is that? He's really young here. We were just at, we went and saw the movie It. Not that movie It, the silent film It.
Yeah.
And Gary Cooper has a small role in that. And I didn't recognize him at all in that. Some people could find
And we
him
were even warned. Oh, by the way, look for this special guest.
Didn't recognize him at all.
And we know Gary Cooper.
Right. Could not miss Hugh Grant.
So the story of the worm is basically told in this ball too.
Yeah, so they have kind of at the party they do a reenactment in dance and kind of in fun. It's funny because so they have this big so-called worm, weaving in and out at the party. It mostly reminded me of the Chinese dragons at their New Year. It very much looks like that. And meanwhile, you've got kind of this folk rock band playing a ballad based on basically based on the Lambton Worm song. When I say folk rock, I mean more in the sense of the Pogues, and not in the sense of Peter, Paul, and Mary. I mean this is actually foot stomping. I happen to like this stuff,
Yeah.
It's more like the Fairport Convention or the Pogues or something like that.
I think they're only known for that song. I think I looked them up. And
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a shame because that was kind of rocking.
Yeah.
And so he enacts the legend, and he starts telling because basically the Lord throws this party every year for the tenants of the land, and again this is that kind of weird noblesse oblige type stuff that was very in the 19th century of this is once a year, and we I think in this it's supposed to be the beginning of spring, and they're having this big party, so that's why the two girls go off and they bring Angus with them to this party at the manor house.
Well, Eve is with James.
Were they really dating yet?
Guess they spend the night.
Explain Eve is one of the two sisters.
Yeah, there's Mary and Eve.
Right. Which is a little hitting yourself over the head with the names, I think. But
I get the feeling Ken Russell doesn't care about that.
the two sisters are Mary and Eve, and so Eve is kind of into James, who is Hugh Grant, and Mary is with Angus, sort of.
After the party, Mary and Angus walk home along this road where her Mary and Eve's parents disappeared the year before. That's when we see the car drive by. That's Lady Sylvia.
When I say it's phallic, I'm saying it kind of reminds me of the ambiguously gay duo's car.
Yeah. I thought it was supposed to be a snake head. It's kind of snakehead.
Well, honey, have you ever thought about what a snake looks like?
What? What do you mean?
Have you thought about the shape of a snake?
Huh. Let me think. Oh!
So she is barreling down, and so now we're introduced to Lady Sylvia. Sylvia, she is. It's funny. So she's the lady of what, Temple House?
Yes.
But again, I guess you can have lords who are lord of a certain land, and then you have like other titled nobles who don't actually like own anything.
Right.
Like British peerage is very weird and confusing, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, you know, once you get into the modern period, like I kind of understand when you've got like I'm the big man who like has a bunch of guys under me, my knights, and like we cannot control territory. That I understand. But when you get into British peerage, where like a guy can be a lord and they just like kind of make up a place name for them to be a lord of, and it's not connected to anything, and it's just kind of like, what is that? What is that? That doesn't, like, I don't understand. Like, I'm too American to understand any of that stuff. It's weird. It doesn't make sense. What did they do? They don't do anything. Like, the House of Lords, what is that even there for? I don't understand. Like, some of those guys are like cardinals and stuff. What, you're not lord of anything. What are you lord of? At least have an army under you if you're gonna be a lord. I'll say this for Hugh Grant's character. He can marshal up a whole bunch of dudes to go running around with smoke machines at the end of this movie. Now, that's a lord. This lady, I don't see anybody under her.
She doesn't need anybody under her.
Well,
She got a big snake.
that's true. She does have. Well, I guess she has the big snake under her.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that is a better way to go. Maybe I should become a lady of a snake or something. Wait, no, that's a bad idea. I know how this movie ends. Anyway, so yeah, we're introduced to Lady Sylvia, and it does not take long to find out. Oh, she ain't quite human no more.
Yeah.
Because she gets into spitting venom real fast, and those fangs come out. It's pretty great. I love the fangs.
She starts off, I guess, biting Ernie, and then sucking the poison out.
Well, no, Ernie. Ernie is the cop.
Yeah.
And he was out in the woods. I forget why he was out. Like
Because Mary said she saw this car, and so he goes to investigate.
That's right. Okay, so because she had been driving her car about, and Mary reports it, and he goes out to investigate. He feels like he's been bit by a snake or something, and so she does the whole thing of, oh, well, hold on, I'll suck out the poison. Even though she at first says, you probably just got stung by some nettles.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of like, no, you probably weren't bitten by a snake. Would you like to be? So she goes and sucks out the poison from his ankle. And I guess then has him under her thrall after that because she gives it a good bite. Like, is he actually bit by a snake at some point? We never actually see what happens to him.
When do we see?
Because towards the end of the film, he goes all snake-like.
Right, but that bite is on his wrist.
Right.
So I think that she bites him again after.
Yeah.
Like as the heat is kind of coming down on her, she bites him.
Okay.
I think in the beginning here, she lets him go.
Right. He's already enthralled to her just on like sex appeal level.
Yeah. Hey, who isn't?
So they find the father's watch. Now, the father disappeared over at around Temple House, right? And the watch is found over at the caves.
Right.
So there's like a mountain with caves in it. Because the watch has been found, right, that's what draws her into the story. Because obviously she's connected to the disappearance.
Yeah, it's not a subtle like, who did it?
No. No, we don't need Poirot for this. Thank you.
She is snaking around immediately on the screen.
So she goes to their house while they're all out. Now, because the watch has been found, they're like, we have to go and try to find like more evidence of what happened to our parents, and so that's why they spend a lot of time outside of the house and into the woods. So while everybody's out of the bed and breakfast, she goes in and steals the skull. Yeah. Which, to be fair, the skull is kind of hers. As she's in the house, she sees a crucifix on the wall, and decides to spit snake venom on it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the whole pea soup sort of thing. It's a bit Exorcist in that sense.
Yeah.
When Eve gets back into the house, and I guess they go up to. Now, what brings her back into the house? Do you remember?
She's just getting home with James, who says they've been up all night dancing.
That's right. They had not even gotten home yet. It was just Mary and Angus who went out looking for
Yeah.
more evidence. So as she comes into the house and goes upstairs and sees the crucifix and is like, oh, that's really strange. She goes to touch it, and we get the first insane vision in this movie.
Yeah.
I like you said this kind of reminded you of David Lynch.
Yeah, a little David Lynchy. It's a little bit like...
Oh, it reminds me of Fire Walk With Me.
Yeah, like I could see David Lynch being in the theater and saying, game recognizes game.
Because what we get, like, most of this film, it looks like a, 80s British Gothic horror movie. It's got that kind of a lighting. It's more naturalistic than, say, a Hammer picture. But, it's not... It's not particularly unusual looking. So when we get these visions just look like an insane music video.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weird green screen going on. There is, just people like gaudily painted. And
if anyone's ever seen an old Black Sabbath video, yeah, where there's obvious stuff going on behind them in this ridiculous blue screen at the time.
Yeah, so you have like this weird layering of images.
Yeah.
The way that they used to do that stuff, and it looks really cool. It's like an aesthetic that I kind of want to have come back.
Yeah, it also reminds me of Doctor Who. Mm-hmm. Doctor Who would have that kind of thing.
This definitely has a touch of Doctor Who in it, not just because of Peter Capaldi.
Yeah.
But it
has a more classic Doctor Who vibe. Like, I mean, we're a fan of this episode called The Daemons.
Oh, I love The Daemons. Yeah.
That this easily could be part of.
Yeah. If you took the sex out of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to, but it would definitely fall into that range.
Oh man, if that witch from The Daemons was in this.
Oh my God. Then it would be the perfect movie.
It would be.
Oh, I love her.
She's awesome.
I want to be her when I grow up.
Heck, if you threw the master in this.
Man, that era.
The Richard Delgado master is just so fun. Campy and
I love him. I love him so much.
The more I think of it, the more this movie reminds me of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's Morris dancers. There's
Yeah. Well, because they're all going like it. I mean, it's kind of like the Wicker Man. They're all doing that kind of British folk horror gothic type of story.
Yeah.
But let me tell you about her vision.
Mm-hmm.
So what she sees is now leaving aside the visuals, which you got to look this thing up, man. It is. Again, I love it. But so what she has this vision of these nuns at their convent and they're praying to a crucifix, although the crucifix is human size and there's a life-size man on there.
Yeah.
And as they're praying to the crucifix, though, all of a sudden this big white snake starts encircling Jesus, and these Roman centurions come out of nowhere and basically just start raping the nuns.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of violence going on, and it's like this insane vision. Because first of all, where are these Roman centurions coming from? They died out like 500 years ago. From when this is supposed to be happening. This is supposed to be a monastery in like the year like 1084 or something like that, because they bring up the Domesday Book. And like, so where are these centurions coming from? The Romans left Britain in like the year 407 or something
so
like
wait,
that. So where are these Romans coming from?
Who was the exiled guy?
Oh, well, yeah. Who is the Roman emperor that this is supposed to be? Like, I don't think he's like a real Roman emperor. Hold on, let me look that up.
As Angus calls him, it's the exiled emperor.
I think that was like a fake emperor. I did not recognize the name of that emperor, and I listened to all of the history of Rome. Thank you very much. I would have remembered this dude.
Yeah.
No, they bring up like there's some sort of exiled Roman emperor who was in Britain and he worshipped a snake god called Dionin. No, that's something that they made up for the movie.
What?
Well, I'm just saying, Julian the Apostate would look at this whole like snake cult and be like, "It's a bit much, guys." So, but she has this image, this vision of these nuns being raped by Roman centurions, and I'm just like,
oh, and Lady Sylvia's there too.
And Lady Sylvia is of course
hanging
there
out with the snake.
She's not just hanging out with the snake. I mean, she's making like the most like over the top, like cackling, lascivious. Like she spends a lot of this movie naked.
Yeah.
With her hair slicked back and moving her tongue around and like laughing the whole time. She is having a ball.
Yeah.
I gotta say, she makes evil look really fun. so she has this vision and she falls to the ground and all that, and she is found by James.
James runs up the steps.
Yeah.
And then...
And she tries to explain that, well, I don't know, I had some sort of a vision, blah, blah, blah. And they go to look for the skull, and the skull is gone.
Yeah.
What they don't realize, of course, is that Lady Sylvia has taken it. The watch has been found. The skull is gone.
Also, James shows her the...
but James has found, has learned about the mosaic, right, for the old temple. So one thing that Angus, Peter Capaldi, he has gone down another layer. So he had been at like the convent layer. So that's like the year 1084 or something like that. He went down further down, and now they're at the level of an old pagan temple.
Yeah.
Where they find a mosaic of a white snake encircling a cross, much like in her vision.
Yeah.
So obviously this was the site of a pagan cult, a cult of this snake god Dione.
Yeah.
We pretty quickly put together, faster than the characters, that Lady Sylvia is a priestess of this cult.
Right.
And is our snake woman. We go back to Lady Sylvia, and this is really just like I think mostly an interlude just to show how nice and evil she is. She picks up a hitchhiking Boy Scout who's on his way to a youth hostel. And I mean, he's young, but he's not like 12 or anything.
Yeah.
Right? Like, look, I don't know why I'm trying to like make apologies for like borderline, I don't know what you want to call this, but he's kind of on the young side, but she's evil. So look.
I'm sure Ken is like, in the 70s, I could have gone away with way more than this.
Yeah, he could have. That's not necessarily a good thing.
Right.
But yeah, so she picks up this hitchhiking Boy Scout and takes him back to her place, and they play snakes and ladders. And which reminded me, like, it's a little weird that in the UK they play snakes and ladders, and in the US we play shoots and ladders.
I played shoots and ladders.
Right, so did I. And so in America, what we have is shoots and ladders, which is basically the same board game, but the kids are sliding on slides, like a playground slide. And I can picture the game in my head from when I was a kid.
Some of them wiggle, some that go straight down.
Right.
Yeah.
I think over in the UK they have snakes on their board.
That's because Donohoe rolls over in the UK.
Well, yeah, I don't know. It's like they're definitely like a weirder culture than ours.
Yeah.
So yeah, I found it funny. Like I'm looking at this, and like obviously one of the snakes on here is done as the white worm, but it's also that's just like a normal game over there. Like you watch this in the United States and you see them playing snakes and ladders, and you're like, man, they're playing an evil game. Yeah. And I had to like kind of check myself and go, no, I guess this is just like a weird version of their real game. But anyway, yeah, so she basically lures him into a tub, and then it's funny. There's a couple of times in this where it's like she's going to, have her way with whatever guy that she entraps. It's obviously like she's going to like have sex with them and then kill them. And like more than once, it's kind of like she never gets to the sex part. She just kind of gets bored with them and kills them.
Actually, at this time, she's interrupted by James.
Well, that's true, but I feel like there's been a couple of times where it looks like she's gonna like have sex with somebody, and then like the movie's just like, I'm kind of bored of it. Let's just kill them. And I'm like, I don't know, man. It's got to be kind of weird to be a demon with like that level of ADD, right?
Yeah.
So James shows up, and this is kind of great because he's wearing a military uniform for some reason.
Out of nowhere.
I don't know why he's wearing the military uniform, but and he introduces himself like, yeah, I'm basically the local lord. I live down the lane.
We're
like,
neighbors.
We're neighbors.
Yeah.
I actually own all this land. I'm like a real lord who actually like has people under him. You're not, but hi, welcome. I'm like in charge now. And it's mostly him just like scouting out, like, hey, we kind of have the idea that there's something going on here with the finding of the watch and all that stuff. Yeah, so he interrupts her disemboweling of the kid.
I think she was going to offer him as the sacrifice.
Right, yeah.
And when James comes, the kid is like paralyzed by then with venom, and she just shoves him down into the water to drown him.
Yeah. Well, he's inconvenient. I mean, look... Yeah. You don't want to have a kid like that like hanging around.
There's no style in offering him up.
No, and as she said, he doesn't smell very good.
No.
The way like teenage boys generally don't.
Right.
I'm just saying I kind of don't blame her.
Yeah.
In fact, I thought it was kind of weird and sketchy that she picked him up in the first place. Look, I just think if you're going to do human sacrifice, it should be of adults. Children, that's weird and creepy. But anyway, so he decides to try to invite her into his place. James is like, wants her to come to his place because...
Well, you get the feeling that James is a bit of a playboy.
But I don't think that's why he's inviting her over. Like, by now they've already figured out there's something, like, weird going on with her, right?
I got the feeling from that scene that she was kind of charming him a bit.
Well, she was trying to charm him. Yeah. Absolutely. But he's already... he makes... you pointed out that Angus figures out, like, they had cut the snake up and...
But
right,
I feel like he doesn't figure it out until the dream.
Oh, that's a good question. Has he already figured it out or not? Because he's already suspecting there's something going on between the skull and the worm story and the fact that the parents disappeared in one place and the watch appeared in the other. So he's figured out that there is some sort of connection between the caves that go back to Temple House.
And it's like kind of like thumps him on the head because he looks at the newspaper.
Right.
And there's a picture of the cave where it's at, and then it looks up a painting of his ancestor killing the worm, and there's a cave just like it there. But
you would think he'd have already kind of figured out, though, hey, this is the cave where that happened. Like, it's kind of like, wait a minute, how old are you that it took you this long to figure out your own caves?
But he's the one that definitely believes before anyone that, there is a giant snake that's eating people.
Yeah, Angus, I think, being like more of the scientific mind is just like, no, that's ridiculous.
And
but...
the sisters are like, that's daft.
Yeah. But so he has this dream, which again is very subtle.
And now he's dressed up as I guess a captain, like a airplane pilot.
Right. He dreams he gets on an airplane where the lead stewardess
a Concorde.
is. Oh, you're right. It is a Concorde.
Yeah.
The head stewardess is Lady Sylvia.
Mm-hmm.
And she ties him up. Sylvia and Mary start like wrestling. And then again, some of that trademark Ken Russell subtlety, his pen starts to rise as he's watching this. Yes. Here's the thing. It doesn't really matter. The worst thing is somebody trying to describe a dream to you. The second worst thing is somebody trying to describe like somebody else's dream to you. So like it doesn't matter what actually happens. The point is he has a dream and it's got all sorts. But here's what I appreciate though. It has this sort of weird logic and imagery that you find in dreams.
Yeah.
Things that like it kind of makes sense and it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And you have people who are in like positions that don't make a whole lot of sense. And so I appreciate that he does kind of capture what a dream is like. So he tries to lure Sylvia into the house using like Turkish snake charmer music, which kind of half works and kind of doesn't. Meanwhile, Angus having figured out like, all these people are getting snake bit, he goes and gets anti-venom.
Well, a lot happens in the end.
Yeah, a whole lot all of a sudden happens. So you've got, on the one hand, you've got James decides, okay, obviously there is like a connection in the tunnels from the mountain where the worm legendarily lived and Temple House. And so he gathers together a whole crew of people and they're going to essentially smoke the monster away from the caves to Temple House. So they try to get, so while that's happening, Angus and Mary go to try to rescue their parents. Eve has been taken prisoner at this point.
I think they're trying to rescue Eve.
Well,
I think by then, Mother's been cut in half.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a whole thing where like they do get to the house and they find the mother watching television.
Right.
And then all of a sudden she whips around and she's a snake lady too.
Yeah.
I don't think we even find the father, do we?
I assume the father was eaten by the snake.
Yeah.
And then comes out the other side as a watch.
That's right. That's how they find the watch, is basically he's been digested.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. See, I don't know why I'm having trouble putting some of the details together, but I am. Essentially, they had to kill her mother.
Yeah.
Because mom's not really mom anymore.
Right.
It had a little bit of that, what is that movie? Dead Alive? The Peter Jackson movie.
Yeah. No, I think it's Dead Alive.
Dead Alive. See, I always confuse that title with that and the Kenneth Branagh movie.
I think it's called Brain Dead.
Yeah.
Outside of the U.S. and called Dead Alive because there was another movie called Brain Dead.
You can see Peter Jackson's indebtedness to Ken Russell, definitely.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So they killed the mother and they have to rescue Eve, who has been taken prisoner by Lady Sylvia as a human sacrifice because she is still a virgin. So down under Temple House is a whole series of tunnels, of course. And so the snake monster has been smoked out towards Temple House, but he was probably going to go there anyway because it's feeding time. And so now we get to the end of the film where you've just got a naked Lady Sylvia in full snake lady mode. She's got on basically a big dildo.
Yeah.
I don't know if they said what it's made of.
It looks like a horn or something.
Yeah, it looks like ivory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's got carvings all over it.
I would love to see what those carvings actually are.
Yeah.
They look pretty cool. And so Angus has been trying to, like, his version of snake charming is playing the bagpipes.
Yeah.
Now, I happen to like bagpipes.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that they were using bagpipes not as just like a joke. Because so often you see bagpipes used as like a joke of this is the worst music ever instead of, hey, this makes sense for snake charming because
Right.
it kind of sounds like the same sort of instrument.
Yeah.
So, so first he has to battle the cop who's gone full snake by now.
Yeah.
And so they have a fight and the cop ends up getting impaled by accident, actually, right through the eye. It's
Yeah.
pretty great. And so then he goes down into the lair of, the lair of the White Worm. And it's funny because so much of this movie, you think Hugh Grant is going to be like the dragon slaying hero in this. And he's not.
No.
Not at all. I mean, it's kind of like a neat reversal of expectations. Instead, it's Angus, it's Peter Capaldi. So he goes down into the bowels, and he, of course, ends up getting attacked. Was it Sylvia gets him, or is it the snake? No, it's Sylvia.
Sylvia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he gets
But before this, he injects himself with something.
right. Well, that's what I was saying. He
yeah.
got anti-venom, or he
Right.
thought he got anti-venom.
Yeah.
And injects himself. And so when he gets bitten by Sylvia, you figure he's down for the count. See, we had seen him inject himself earlier in the film, but he didn't say what it was.
Right.
But, I guess if you're smart, I'm not, you would assume it was anti-venom. Although I don't think that's how that would work. I don't think
Yeah.
you can give yourself anti-venom first. I just think the science in this movie is a little wonky. I don't know if it really
You don't
worked.
think Ken did a lot of research on
how anti-venom works?
Yeah.
No, I think it might have a few problems.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, he gets bit, and next thing you know, he's down for the count on the ground, and you think he's dead at first, but occasionally you see him like kind of still twitching. And so Mary is like tied up and she can't really do anything, and Lady Sylvia is like dangling Eve over the pit, waiting for the worm to show up, and she's got the big dildo on, and all of a sudden Angus springs back to life and is able to like climb up the steps over the pit. So he climbs up, and the Sylvia is starting to saw away at the ropes to have Eve just drop into the mouth of the serpent, and he's able to get up there and try to free her. What causes Sylvia to fall? Do you remember?
I think he just bodies her into the pit.
Yeah.
But she grabs on to Eve's feet.
Yeah, her ankles. Yeah.
And then he cuts her wrist off.
He cuts her arm, right? Yeah. He severs her at the wrist.
Yeah.
It's kind of great. I mean, I'm like,
and you can hear it's really squishy sounding. Yeah, it's kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit cartoonish, and it's wonderful. Yeah,
it's also Peter Jackson-ish.
Definitely. So yeah, Sylvia then ends up being dinner instead of Eve. She goes right into the mouth of the worm,
and he has a hand grenade.
Right. So he ends up. So just because Sylvia's gone doesn't mean we're done with the snake. So once Eve is out of danger and has been able to like get out of the way, he pulls out from under his the sporin, I guess it's called, the front pouch of a kilt. He pulls out a hand grenade and throws it into the snake, and it blows up the snake.
Yeah. The end. Yay.
Well, here's the thing.
What?
So they come back, they get out and, yay, we're saved and everything. And Angus gets a phone call from the hospital. It turns out they didn't give him anti-venom. They gave him an anti-arthritis medication. Sure. Okay, movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Hugh Grant's just like, oh, well, you did a great job. Isn't this wonderful? Hey, can I give you a ride? Let's go hang out or something.
I'm famished. Do you want a bite to eat?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the film is Angus just kind of look at him like, huh, Yeah, I could go for a bite because is he going to be a snake person now?
Well, he suddenly lifts up his kilt and there's the bites.
Do you think he is a snake person at the end?
Yeah, I think he is, but I'm not sure if maybe
because the worm's gone.
Yeah, but what if James is as well?
Ooh.
Because he kind of disappears for a while.
Yeah.
And when they ask, like, how did you get out of that? He's like, well, I just got out of the way or something. Because the last thing we see of that night before they attack is we see the mom on the floor grab his leg.
Right.
And then it cuts. And then, like, he just shows up and he's like, oh, I'm fine. You know, and I was just like, maybe he is a snake now.
Huh, that's a good point.
Just a thought.
Yeah.
Nothing in the movie says that he is. I mean,
Right.
it doesn't tilt its cards that way. But if somehow there was a sequel, I could easily see one or both of them being snake dudes.
But so, what would be the purpose of being a snake person now if there's no giant snake god to, feed people to?
There just is.
Well, I think the real answer is it's a sloppy movie.
It is a sloppy movie, and it's like the hand coming out of the grave, typical horror movie ending.
Absolutely,
It's
yeah.
like just a silly,
But the thing is, what I like about it's a goofy ending. No, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Whatever. But I just kind of like the way Capaldi plays it because he kind of gives this half smile, just cut to the end, and that's it. And I like that. It's kind of a little bit of a funny, wink of an ending.
Yeah.
But no, it makes absolutely no sense. But then, like, it's a movie about snake gods and evil people and like whatever. It doesn't have to make sense. I don't need it to make sense. It was too busy being like weird and kinky and silly, and I loved it. I thought this was a blast. I know some people don't like it. I think it's a lot of fun. So that was The Lair of the White Worm, starring Amanda Donohoe, Hugh Grant, Catherine Oxenberg, Peter Capaldi, Sammi Davis, Stratford Johns as Peters, the butler. He was great in this.
He felt kind of like a Rocky Horror character.
Yeah, you know what? This definitely, I think, is something you could watch with Rocky Horror. It kind of has a similar sensibility. It's not a musical in the same way, but it has that high camp quality. And Paul Brook as P.C. Ernie, the cop. Written and directed by Ken Russell, based on a Bram Stoker novel that nobody ever wants to read, apparently. Yeah. I tried. Didn't get anywhere. You can follow us on social media. We are Mary vs. Movies on Twitter. Yes, Twitter. I'm not doing it. I don't care. Look, until they start asking for biometric data, I'm going with that.
That was also today.
What? Well, they haven't taken my face yet.
Yeah.
So, but the moment they do, I'm not on there anymore. But until that moment, you can follow us on Twitter. We are Mary vs. Movies. We are Mary vs. Movies on Blue Sky, Mary vs. Movies on Instagram, Mary vs. Movies at mas.to on Mastodon, Mary versus the Movies on Tumblr. And we do have a website. We have nothing on the website. I just renewed the domain, but I have yet to upload anything. I got to about episode 50 and then things took over and now we're at episode 117. So I'm like, oh my God, I have so much more to input. It will happen eventually, just not right now.
Yeah.
Maybe there'll be a snowstorm or something and I won't be able to go anywhere for a week and I can just work on the website. But until that time, don't worry about it. All right. Anyway, we're available on all of the major platforms. We are on Apple Podcasts where you can rate and review the show. We would appreciate if you did. You can you can't review us on Spotify, but you can rate us, and I would appreciate that. And we are on Google Play, Overcast. You can probably just get our RSS feed and plug it into whatever your podcatcher of choice is. That's on the Libsyn website, and you can get that. I guess over on. I don't know. I think we have a link to it on our Instagram and on our Twitter bios. You can also contact the show. We have we do have an email account, and I do check my email, believe it or not. You can write to us at maryviasmovies@gmail.com with any comments, questions, complaints, or suggestions. We would love to hear from you. And one thing you can write to us about is you can always sign up for our newsletter. That's right. We have a newsletter where we write about the movie that we just saw, other movies that we've been watching that week, or TV shows, or books we've been reading, whatever, concerts we went to, music. Dennis reviews pizza. And
Wawa just put out a new pizza. I can't wait to have it.
Well,
I don't think it'll be good.
I was gonna say, when you say you can't wait,
Well,
I mean,
it's a historic event.
So yeah, you can always just write to us and sign up for the newsletter because that is free. Not free, on the other hand, is our Patreon. That's right, we have a Patreon because it does cost money to create this show. We pay for a Libsyn account, we pay for a Zoom account because we sometimes have guests. It costs. We have to rent movies, man. So any sort of help that you can send to the show, we really appreciate. But in return, you get access to our monthly podcast, Hollywood Avalon, where we talk about Arthurian movies. The most recent episode was King Arthur Was a Gentleman, which is a comedy from the 1940s, a British wartime film. But we've also reviewed movies like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, The Kid Who Would Be King, First Night, which is terrible.
You know what? The whole spiral down to the bottom of the tour and Glastonbury in The Kid Who Would Be King,
Yeah.
kind of reminded me of whatever setup of the Worm.
Sure.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. No, that's cool. I don't know that it's a
just
reference.
I think it's just a British thing.
It probably is.
Yeah.
They have caves in Britain. I'm sure they all look like that inside.
Yeah.
They all have dragons in them too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you can sign up for the Patreon and get access to our second show. And we would appreciate it if you did. It is $3 a month. And yeah, so that is patreon.com/MaryVSMovies. Next episode, we're going to have a guest. Alana Phelan is back. She is here for her third go-around in Horror Month. And I have no idea what we're watching with her.
No.
So I can't tell you what movie we're going to watch, but it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. So that will be next episode. Until then.
That's enough of that, Kevin. That sort of music freaks me out.